It seems that Mercedes cannot catch a break in the last 2 years as another year-old problem returned this week at the Belgium Grand Prix. This prompted Hamilton to pray, according to his words, that the team will listen to him this time. With the silver arrows not being able to convert the good W14 changes into tangible results and with the recent problem returning again, what could that mean for his future in the team, and is this a fundamental design flaw with the car? A boring Spa race ended with Hamilton taking P4, but the major talking point for the 7-time world champion was not the race, rather than a problem which has been a controversial one during the last year, leading to arguments even between the team principals, as we saw during that episode in the famous Drive to Survive series. In the simplest terms, porpoising is an aerodynamic phenomenon that F1 cars began to suffer from after the adoption of the so-called ground effect philosophy, where air is sucked underneath the car to pull it down onto the track at high speed rather than over the top of the car to push it down. The trouble is, the faster you go, the further a car wants to be sucked to the floor, and if it gets too close, it can cause the airflow to stop or stall, meaning the downforce created suddenly drops off a cliff. At that point, the cars spring upwards. Once the car's floor is clear of the ground, however, the flow of air kicks in again and the car is sucked downwards once more. This aggressive bouncing is called porpoising. From the 2022 French Grand Prix onwards, the FIA imposed an acceptable limit for bouncing monitored by an accelerometer in each car. From that point forwards, any team in breach of the limit would then be forced to raise their ride height to fix the problem or potentially face exclusion on safety grounds. The FIA chose that approach because not all of the teams were suffering that badly from porpoising, and those that first saw the problems and built machines accordingly argued it was up to their rivals to design better cars, and they had a point. For 2023, the FIA revised the rulebook by raising the minimum height of every car's floor edge by 15 millimeters after the drivers complained that the extreme bouncing was unsafe. But it all comes back to that key phrase again, downforce. By running a car and the edges of its floor higher off the ground, you can prevent porpoising, but it also means you'll create less downforce. Porpoising has plagued every team in early 2022, with Mercedes being hit the hardest due to their car design being as close to the ground as possible. The problem was that Mercedes' car was designed to run as low to the ground as possible, and the team didn't realize the barrage of problems that would create until it was too late. Having tried and apparently failed to make its concept work before the start of the 2023 season, the result of the Bahrain Grand Prix, in which the team was beaten by Aston Martin, an outfit which buys many of its parts from Mercedes but has adopted the super-fast design concept of Red Bull. Team principal Toto Wolff has finally admitted they need to go back to the drawing board. Except it didn't quite work out like that. Before the new season had even begun last March, Mercedes had to face the uncomfortable truth that pursuing the concept had been a mistake, that it was a dead end, and the W14 would be a bust without a total rethink. Grand Prix Racing summed up the mood music coming out of the team by running an image of the W14 going through a shredder on the cover of the May issue. And how apt that was, for Mercedes had already begun work on wide-reaching changes we're only now beginning to see. The flurry of upgrades had been planned long before Technical Director Mike Elliott and Chief Technical Officer James Allison performed the job swap, which put Allison back in charge of frontline development. A new bodywork package and floor was penciled in for the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix at Imola. The race's cancellation due to heavy flooding in northern Italy pushed this introduction back to Monaco. Hardly the ideal test bed for such a crucial array of updates, but they were already fully ensconced in the W14's DNA by then. Mercedes was not about to back out of its dramatic U-turn. Lewis Hamilton has voiced concerns about the return of this dreaded bouncing issue that previously troubled Mercedes, especially evident during the recent Spa-Francorchamps race, and despite finishing fourth in the Belgian Grand Prix and demonstrating commendable overall race speed, Hamilton revealed he struggled to keep pace with both Red Bull drivers and Ferrari's Charles Leclerc. The issue of the car's porpoising, a significant setback for Mercedes last season, seemed to have been largely resolved this year. However, George Russell also reported the resurgence of the unsettling bouncing issue. Hamilton echoed the sentiment, recalling similar problems in the Austrian Grand Prix a few races prior, adding to concerns about the car's performance in the high-velocity Belgian circuit. Despite these issues, Hamilton and his teammate managed to earn more essential points in the race at Spa. This brought Hamilton within striking distance of third place in the Drivers' Championship, just 1 point behind Fernando Alonso. I mean, it was kind of a non-eventful race, really there's not really much going on, Hamilton admitted to Sky F1 after the race. I wasn't able to keep up with the cars ahead of me and struggled in the beginning. Rear end is our biggest issue, and then we had a big bouncing this weekend, so we're back to the bouncing like we had last year. But at the end, I was kind of keeping the Ferrari within a few seconds, but I couldn't get any closer to the battle. To get the fastest lap at the end, it was nice to have the gap to the car behind, and the last lap was decent, but it was gusty today. It was difficult out there on track. Toto Wolff, however, thinks the team is heading in the right direction, but underlined that they need to find the cause of the purposing issue as soon as possible. The main limiting factor was the bouncing. The car was just bouncing literally on every straight, explained Wolff. Even Blanchimont was a corner where Lewis had to lift, and it is an easy flat normally, so you're bouncing on a straight, you overheat the tires under braking, and that is a vicious circle. It was the main limiting factor this weekend. It's frustrating to check out for the holidays like this, but the next few days we've got to understand more based on the data. Reflecting on why the bouncing had returned, Wolff suspects that the upgrades that arrived for Belgium may have been a factor, but he still remains convinced that the team has made the right call with its current development focus. We've got to analyze it, he said. There is so much hard work that's been going on for the upgrade. The aero guys and the operations to deliver that upgrade, you've got to take your hat off to them. I think the floor could have been the reason why we've been bouncing, but we're still going to see it in the data. And maybe there's something that we need to find, because I still believe the direction that we're going now is the right one. So to be honest, Toto Wolff has been saying Mercedes is on the right path for probably about 18 months at this point. However, no one could get close to Red Bull, and based on the race today, is anyone going to get close to Red Bull for the next 3 years? It's a big question to say the least. In the middle of the season, their advantage, if anything, has been extended over the last couple of races. Red Bull is not done with upgrades yet, and they have more understanding to gain. Meanwhile, Mercedes is still encountering some issues. For instance, there's this bouncing issue, which I imagine is probably related to the setup on the new upgrades they brought. They introduced the new rear wing, the new sidepod design, and some other things as well. These are sizable upgrades, and I suspect that Mercedes didn't absolutely maximize what they can get out of their upgrades. They should theoretically perform better at Zandvoort, given the way their cars is set up. However, this is only after the summer break. Maybe Mercedes pushed right hard a bit too much this weekend. They certainly have some things to figure out. I don't think that the car is going to suddenly start purposing every weekend like it did at the start of the last season. Yet, there are still some concerns from Hamilton, mainly about confidence. If the car is bouncing around on the straights and in the corners, the driver won't have the confidence to really push the limits. This lack of confidence is, according to the Mercedes team, what's holding them back the most. The issue is not necessarily that their car is much slower, it's just that the Red Bull is so planted. It's got all the rear-end stability it would ever need. Hamilton has communicated his needs to the team and is patiently waiting for them to deliver. Whether that's going to be until 2026, frankly, we don't know at this point. Arguably, Mercedes now sits where it should have begun 2022, although it's easy to make that claim with hindsight. Plotting a direction which doesn't take it down another development cul-de-sac is going to be crucial if it is to challenge Red Bull again and not fall even further behind. What do you think? Could Mercedes bounce back, pun intended, from this issue, or will they have more of it after the summer break? Let us know in the comments below, and we will see you in the next one.